What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for part 2 of the heater core project. We are working on my daily driver PT Cruiser, replacing the heater core, fixing our blend doors, and doing a bunch of work to the HVAC system. In this episode, we're going to be fixing our actual issues, putting our new heater core in the HVAC, getting everything cleaned up, set up, diagnosed, and get ready to put it all back together again and go through that whole process for the second time. I decided to split this into 3 parts, so there will be one more episode after this that will be like the complete reassembly. That is the best way to do it in order to make it in-depth and also still somewhat entertaining for you guys. Let me know what you think down below, and also if you haven't seen part 1, link up in the corner, and also when part 3 is out, there will be a link up there as well as down below. I'll be putting these in a playlist, but anyways guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this episode. Majority of this is going to be filmed the weekend after Thanksgiving, so belated happy Thanksgiving to all you guys. I think this is the first opportunity I will have had to say it in a video. But in order to finish diagnosing, what we're going to do is we're going to use not only our little scope camera thing, but we're actually going to pressure test the coolant system as well. I'm going to use this really cool little pressure tester kit that I got at Harbor Freight. One of the best investments I've ever made. Coolant leaks are like impossible to find usually, and you're running the car and looking around trying to find them. It's a super big pain. I remember in the past when we were working on my dad's DTS, we kept having weird overheating issues and we were losing coolant and we couldn't find the leak, but as soon as I put this on the system and pumped it up to pressure, you could immediately just see it dripping out somewhere where you normally wouldn't be able to. This is really awesome. It's got the little hand pump and all the attachments. That's what we're gonna be using today. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the system, and then we're gonna take a look at our heater core down in there and see if we see any liquid anywhere, anything wet. As you guys can see, we got our little attachment on there, and I already got the system pumped up to 16 pounds. So far, I don't see any leaks like underneath the car or anything obvious, so that's always a good sign. After leaving the pressure test around for a little bit, I got the camera done in here and I've been looking around for a while. It's hard to tell using the camera pointing at the screen of the thing, but I'm not seeing any in particular liquid. If it is indeed a really small leak, like what it smells like it is, it might not really like accumulate that much, or it might take a long time to. I'm gonna leave the pressure tester on it for like a while just to kind of see what happens. I don't know. Definitely some unknowns here that I'm gonna have to research a little bit and check in with you guys about in one of the future clips here. But something I did notice though is after leaving it on the system for a little bit, there are a few small drops of what look to be coolant right here at the front of the motor, right? Like where our radiator is. I don't know if it's the lower hose or not. The upper part of the lower hose, I can just barely see down in there and it looks okay. I see water up here, like on top of the fan. Uh-oh. Wait, is our upper radiator hose leaking? No, there's not a drop coming from the upper hose. Oh yeah, that's coolant. It's coming out of the top of the fan, like shroud area, and dripping down? What in the world? Did we have a bad radiator in this car? First thing we're gonna do is drain the coolant and then remove our hoses back here. You can kind of see them way back there. Well, actually you can't. I'll wait to show you until we get the heater box out of the way, but gonna remove the whole intake so that we have a little bit easier access. Just gotta remove our clamps, pull our hoses off, and then from there we can go ahead and continue to remove everything inside the car. There's a little bit more tear down left to do, and then we'll be completely in. But the good news is my new heater core actually came here a day early. I wasn't expecting it to come till tomorrow. I was gonna finish tear down today, then we could throw this in. And yes, I did decide to just go ahead and throw a new heater core in, even though I couldn't find any obvious leaking going on down in there. There is still a definite smell of coolant, and since we're already in here trying to get the blend door cleaned up, and you know, this gives us an excuse to tear everything out, make sure everything's good to go, and put it all back in. We'll throw this new heater core in as well. And it's pretty cool how simple these are. Like, look at that. It's just a tiny little radiator basically, and that's where all the heat for the car comes from. That's so cool. You can see we have our 2 inlets right there. It comes with some new hardware as well for the little pipes that are going to go off of those and through the firewall. I could see where over time it could have issues it could wear through, and you know, after 140,000 miles, you never know. So just glad we're getting a new one in. Some of you guys have asked me about the evaporator core, which is also down in there for the air conditioning. Probably not going to replace that unless I find anything obvious in there. The honest reason for that is because I simply forgot about it and I forgot to order one. It seems to be way less of a concern on these cars, and people usually don't have any issues with them. If I did have to replace the core or something, or I had an issue with it down the road, it would be a lot easier to pull the dash apart now that I know how it comes apart, even though it would still kind of suck. But I'm just not going to worry about it for now because it doesn't seem to be any issue. We are going to clean it all out though. I've seen multiple videos of people replacing the heater core and cleaning out the evaporator core while they're in there, but I've never seen somebody replace them both. So I'm just going to not worry about it for right now. I know a lot of people are going to say you're crazy for that, but here's the thing. I know that. I have a drain pan that I use specifically for coolant and stuff like that, but I actually ran it over the other day by accident. It was behind my car and I backed out, and yeah, it didn't end well for the pan. Thankfully, I just recently drained out my oil drain pan, so I'm gonna just borrow that for today. I got the coolant draining right now, and you guys can see now with the air box top out of the way, those are our two heater hoses right there. They have the two little butterfly clamps. They're a little bit hard to get at if you're doing it with pliers. Also, I did remove our vacuum hose for our brake booster. Do not forget to reinstall that. That is scary when that is not connected. But I have these really, really cool butterfly clamp hose pliers. I've talked about these a couple other times in videos, but these things are awesome. Basically, these are the pliers, and then there is a cable that goes to this. This is what you put on the end of the clamp, and then you pull on this, and it pushes it open and locks in place until you press this lever. Then it releases. It's awesome for reaching hoses like that are a little bit in a tight spot. They are going to come in so handy today. I know you guys always ask me about these whenever I mention them in a video, so I'm going to go ahead and put an affiliate link for one set on Amazon that are similar to these in the description. I picked these in particular ones up at AutoZone, but there's a bunch of good ones out there. All right, got her locked on our first clamp. Oh, it's a little bit on there. There we go, I think it's broken loose. There it goes. These hoses are pretty brutal on the end because of just time, but I was able to twist them loose with the pliers. So I was just giving the hose a little twist somehow. We'll break it loose when they're kind of dried on there, but all right, and just like that, went ahead and got our other hose free. That was a lot easier than the first one. And as per usual, spilled coolant everywhere. But now that that's done, we can go ahead and tear everything apart inside the car. We're basically going to be unbolting this metal frame, which has, I think I counted like 14 bolts, but there's 3 here, 2 up there in this bracket, and there's 2 up there in that bracket over on that side. 3 more down the side here. There's 2 down here as well on each side of this. You can see the 1 right there. I think those are the only, oh wait, there's 4, I forgot. There's 2 on each side down under there, you can see. And I can't really find any other ones. Once we got all the bolts out, we can kind of start moving it around a little and see what all is connected and what last little things we need to remove, but we should be pretty much good to go. At this point, I've taken all but our last 4 10mm out of the top. I went around and made sure that I marked every last thing here on the harness that I hadn't already marked. You can see everything has some sort of marking on it. I wrote down what it is on these little pieces of tape. Now I'm just kind of removing the harness from a few spots where I know it's going to hold our metal in. Like for example, this little harness right here, these little plastic things that go into the metal. I'm just prying them up with this little pin puller screwdriver looking thing that I've had for a while. These things are really handy. I think I got this at like Walmart. You can see I just pulled out this little plastic pin nipple out of a hole in the metal here. See, there's another one right there. This was actually for the tweeter, this wire. We're just going through and, like, for example, our airbag one here, prying that out as well, just so that all of it is free from our metal harness. Something else that I do is take a bunch of reference pictures with this camera that I'm also filming with right now, but taking a bunch of good pictures of everything on the harness before you go ahead and take everything apart helps a lot. Something to note is back in here there are a couple of main harness plugins back here, as well as the little OBD2 port that's up under here. They have to be unclipped as well, very carefully, from their little metal bracket back here. You can kind of see the metal bracket right here, this thin metal. There's a couple of large harness plugs that clip in there, and they have to come undone. And of course our little OBD2 plug, this is it right here actually, this is all it is. It goes down into this metal too. There's a hole for it, and there's just these little clips here on the side you got to push it on, pull up on it, and it pulls right out. I'm gonna go ahead and remove our bolts and see what else stuff we have to do, but I think our metal frame and everything is pretty much ready to come out. Found 2 more bolts up under here where the steering wheel normally is. One up there and one over here that has to come out too. Just figured I'd make a note about that because I completely forgot about them. With those 2 bolts out, our metal frame seems to be free, so let's see how this goes. metal frame is out at last. Whew, that was a lot of work, but not too bad. We got everything labeled, so, you know, it's gonna take time, but we're not going to be screwed at any point, which is good. It's a little nerve-wracking though when you look at a whole spaghetti strand of wires here, but it's really fascinating at the same time being able to look at the whole entire harness here. It's so cool. There's gonna be a couple bolts. I see one obviously right here. Not sure where the other ones are. I gotta look around. We got 2 wires here we're gonna be unplugging and labeling, which, well, we already got one. Oh, so this is the antenna harness. We could, ew, God, that is, ew, sticky. I don't know why they put this insulation on it, but that is disgusting. But we could go ahead and probably unplug this as well. Unplug the harness here and just kind of pull it back out of the way so that we can just not have to trip over it or anything while we're in here. So in order to finally remove our whole HVAC unit, we got a little bit more work to do. Actually, a lot more. But it's all mostly under the hood here. And I forgot that there are a couple studs under here that we're going to need to undo. I already went ahead and removed our coolant reservoir. You can see it's right here, but normally it's back there under the hood. There's one little bolt there and one little bolt there. Swivelly head ratchet is a must-have for literally any PT Cruiser owner, but it works really well for this job too. So I got those 2 bolts out, and you can see right there, I soaked it with PB Blaster already, but there's a stud sticking out of the firewall. That we're going to need to remove. That's one of the last things holding it in, but there's yet another stud over here, and it's going to be the biggest pain. So these are our AC lines that run right here on the left side of the engine. They go into the, I believe this is the accumulator right here, this little canister. Then the lines run into the firewall over back in here. I don't know if you can see it, but they just bolt into the car there. You're going to need to unbolt the accumulator and move it in order to get it to one stud that is back in here. Let's see if I can get a view on it. There. That's the stud, and it's kind of nestled behind and to the left of the accumulator. There's a little plastic thing on it that one of these vacuum lines uses to kind of keep itself in place, and that needs to come off before obviously unbolting it. And it's pretty much impossible to get at without removing, or I should say loosening, our canister up here. In order to loosen the canister up though, there's a torque screw way down in here. I'll point an arrow to it real quick because you can like barely see it, but it's like underneath this bracket here, and it's right next to the alternator. The alternator kind of gets in the way a little bit, not on a cap. Some people say you need to remove the alternator or like loosen up the alternator to get at that screw and remove it, which I don't want to have to do. And of course, none of my Torx bits fit down there. Big surprise. So we have to figure something out to get that out of the way and be able to get down in there and be able to move that so that we can remove that last stud that holds it in. We're like, that is all we have left before we can completely remove this. And I want to have it out tonight so bad. We might have to wait till early tomorrow to get that out once and for all, which makes me very sad, but I'm just not sure what I'm going to do to get down in there. I don't want to have to remove the alternator. I do not want to have to do that.
One eternity later.
Well, boys, have been met by yet another obstacle. So I said, screw it, you know what? I'm gonna try to get as far as I can tonight, and the only way I can do that is if I remove the wheel and try to tip the alternator forward so that I can get at that bolt. So that's exactly what I did. I went ahead and pulled the wheel off. I actually didn't have the plastic shroud on here, so normally you'd have to remove that. Made my life a lot easier for this job. As you guys may or may not know, to loosen the alternator doesn't have like an actual tensioner on the belt. You basically have to turn the alternator with a little adjustment screw to do that manually, and you have to manually put tension on this belt. So basically what we were doing is loosening it, and that pushes the alternator back, and that would give us just enough room to get at that bolt. I loosened up the bottom bolt there on the alternator. You can see it right there, the very bottom bolt. It's a 15 millimeter, and then there's another 15 millimeter down in here. I'll point an arrow to it, but that is the other bolt. We have to loosen them both up just a little bit, and then I'll point an arrow at the tensioner bolt, and you can see it's loosened way up, but that right there is indeed the tensioner bolt. And essentially, you'll hopefully be able to see, but the alternator can literally move now, and that gives us enough room to get at our little bolt over here that we need to get at. But there is one last setback, unfortunately. That is a T30 Torx bolt, and of course my T30 socket is the one that is broken. All I have is a T27, and I don't want to risk trying to pull it out with that. So I'm afraid I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow morning, see if I can get another Torx wrench or two, see if I can get a T30 that'll fit down in there. Then we can finally pull this thing out. But we are like so close. It's literally just that one stupid little stud that they hid behind the collector. But I'll check in with you guys tomorrow morning and fast forward until we finally get that and have our HVAC out of the car.
The next day.
Hell yeah, boys. Many hours later, we finally got it to break free. I got another set of these little Torx bit things. They are this style of Torx bit, and they come with little socket adapters. That's what I have going on here. With the alternator loosened up a ton, I was able to fit this down in there, and we broke it loose. Also, I forgot to mention, because obviously the evaporator core is inside our dash, we got to remove AC lines, and that's what these two down in here do. You run inside the firewall, and you can hopefully already see, I'll try to point an arrow, but I already removed the two little bolts. They are these T30 little Torx little bolts. They don't torque very tight, so they should come off pretty easy. And also, of course, you got to make sure that your AC system is discharged. Kind of a no-brainer considering that we're taking the whole HVAC system out of the vehicle, but that stud with the little plastic thing on it, which is right there, I'm gonna get a big screwdriver in there, pop that little plastic piece off and loosen that up. We just got the one stud over there and we are good. Psych! There is one last bolt. It's way down in here, like to the left of where the throttle cable runs through. It's way down there. You can see the stud right there. That bolt is the last one we need to get out. I already went ahead and took it out, as you can see. It's right here. Here she comes. The last piece of the puzzle. We finally got the whole HVAC unit out. This is really cool. This is, I believe, the fan motor in here. Not sure how all of this works. Of course, we got all our blend doors here that we are going to make sure are working properly and get all fixed up and everything before we put it back in. I think part of our issue is like this is melting, this adhesive stuff in here. I don't know if you can really see it, but like it's sticky along the edge. Look at it. It's really, really nasty. It's like gooey tar stuff. So I don't know what we're gonna do about all of that. How I'm gonna make sure that doesn't stick anymore when we put it back in. That's a big deal. So we need to make sure that doesn't stick anymore. Also, the heater core over here comes out actually really easily. There's just a few bolts over here, and that's going to slide out, and then we're gonna be able to see whether or not it was leaking. I think I'm gonna have to pull that out tonight just because I'm too curious. 3 little baby screws in this plastic shroud later. That comes off. 2 little baby screws in the sides of the heater core here. And now that is ready to completely be popped out. There she is. I'm pretty sure if we didn't have a leak already down here in the corner, we were about to have one down in the corner. That does not look very good. The heater core itself looks pretty clean though, so I think if we did have a leak that had sprouted down here, we caught it very early on. I don't feel bad about pulling everything out at all. I'm really glad that we are doing this and getting this over with. Take a little peek in here. We can actually see some liquid that had formed down in here that we were unable to see with our scope camera. So I guess we did have a tiny leak going on in here. Very, very small, but you know, still a leak and still very easy for it to get bigger at this point. Last thing I want to do tonight is go ahead and pull our evaporator core out. The evaporator core is actually in the back of here on the side of the HVAC assembly, like in behind the heater core. So I somehow got to pull all of this apart. I don't know. I hope we don't have to split the whole case apart, but I'm just going to start removing some of these screws and see what happens. Hopefully, we'll be able to just remove part of this backing and be able to pull it out. Yep, as to be expected, there's a bunch of gunk here in the evaporator core. The majority of it is clean though, but this bottom corner, this is full of crap. But that actually wasn't bad. The heater core assembly part just separated from that with a few little screws that went around. I actually didn't have to remove the screws in the back there. And we didn't have to crack the whole thing apart. The heater core assembly come right off. And there were 2 screws in this that I had to remove to be able to pull this all out as one piece. This seems like a much heavier piece of aluminum than the heater core. The heater core is just such thin. I'm not worried about it at all. I am gonna go ahead and clean it out really, really good though. Get that all cleaned out, throw that back in, bolt that back down, throw our heater core back in, and then we're gonna be going the opposite direction, finally. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and I've noticed it myself, but these cars stock, there's a place down in here, underneath this plastic piece, you can pull it out, and there's a little box where you can put a filter for the HVAC system, which basically filters out stuff like that from going into the heater and being sucked in through the evaporator core. Weirdly enough, apparently this car's stock did not come with that installed already. I don't know why, or like, I don't know. It's really weird, but they come without that filter. And I believe I've since put filters in both my cars, but I put them in a little too late because you can see already so much stuff has gotten sucked into here. Thankfully it's in good shape though, so we're gonna clean everything out really good. I'll get in there, I'll power wash out the whole box and everything. Make sure it's super clean, and then we'll start reassembling. can see here is our whole assembly all completely torn down. Now we're gonna be able to remove the little doors and fix any weather stripping that we need to fix. But you can see here's all of this weather stripping. It goes all the way around the door, and we need to get rid of it all. Actually, this is the one that was mainly sticking right here. You can see I cut part of it off that I could reach already. This door will indeed slide out. This is the main one we're gonna be focusing on. Hopefully you can see here in the corner, but this is all gummed up and disgusting. I think that is the reason why this door was sticking and why all of them were having issues. Before I go too much further, I'm gonna take pictures of everything and mark everything so that I don't get confused putting this all back together. But interestingly enough, before I tore this apart, I went ahead and did some Google searching because I was just curious. I wonder what is available as far as just buying a whole new blend door assemblies are concerned. And you can indeed buy this whole assembly with the 3 doors in it and all of the main diverters. Just this part that we're taking apart. Of course, no aftermarket companies make it. You have to buy one OEM Mopar from like a wholesale parts warehouse online or someplace like that that sells Mopar parts. Or you could get it from a dealer or something, but it looks like everywhere they charge about $180 to $200. And that doesn't include any shipping. Basically, by doing this, by cleaning this all out and by fixing this myself today, by spending the extra time doing that, I'm saving myself that much money. So I guess I can't complain. I'm actually pretty excited about that. Alright guys, fast forward a while later, I spent a lot of time cleaning up all of these doors, cutting all of the old rubber crap off of them. You can see here's a bunch of the old stuff that I went ahead and trimmed off. Went ahead and actually used a little bit of sandpaper to sand down each edge. You can kind of see the scratch marks there. Cleaned everything up really good. Used like a brake cleaner kind of stuff to make sure there was no grease or gunk or any more of that crap on it. And if my hand isn't living proof of the fact that that stuff was literally turning into tar, I don't know what is, because it's literally all over my hand and it's not going to come off very easy. But went ahead and got everything cleaned up, and I was trying to decide what to do about the weather stripping, or like using weather stripping to remake the little rubber pieces around the little seals, but I ended up deciding to not actually redo the seals. I went to a couple different hardware stores locally and looked for something that I could use in place of that and kind of use to make my own seals around the blend doors, but nothing I could find I felt like was sturdy enough and wasn't heat resistant enough. I would feel comfortable with it because I felt like we would end up either in the same place, either the heat would deteriorate the foam or the plastic and make it melt, or it would deteriorate the glue that held it on, and then it would just start falling off and getting in the way and causing more issues. There's really nothing I felt comfortable with putting back in there, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the seals off. Might not be quite as efficient, but the doors are still gonna do their job. You guys can go ahead and tell me that I'm crazy down in the comments all you want, but I already know. Got everything cleaned out, cleaned this up a little bit as well. We can go ahead and finally start reassembling everything and getting it back in the car. Those clamps were a pain in the butt, but we got them on. One of them actually stripped out, one of the cheap new ones that this came with. So I ended up reusing one of the old ones, and it was a really big pain to get that on and finally secured, but they're good to go now with the new seals in them. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this in the box and get ready to finally throw the HVAC unit back in the car. And just like that, we went ahead and threw the whole HVAC unit back in the car. I got these 2 bolts in it right here, just holding it in for now. I still gotta bolt it all down and lure the firewall and everything, but we finally got it to this point where it is in the car, and that is where we're gonna wind down this episode. I decided to split this into 3 parts just because I wanna be able to cover the reassembly really well and talk about that a lot. And just do a really good job with each part and make it somewhat entertaining and everything. Not just one long, boring video, but also have a lot of good information in it in case anybody wants to do this job or is trying to do it. Maybe it'll help some people out, but I think that's where we're gonna wind it down for now. I got a vlog coming out hopefully this weekend or maybe Monday, and then we'll be coming out with the next part of this, and then from there we just have so much more to get done with our other projects, and we got another project here coming soon, and just tons of good content to come out with finally once this job is done. I cannot wait to show you guys what is to come. So again, thank you so much for watching. Hit the thumbs up button if you did enjoy, and if it was helpful, comment below. If you have anything to say, or if there's anything I left out of the video or whatever, hit the subscribe button if you did enjoy and if you haven't already. And next to the subscribe button, there's a little bell. You can and hit that and turn on notifications so that you can stay up to date with all the exciting projects that we have coming to the channel very soon. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Thank you so much for your support. You rock. God bless you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.